The road we're on is paved in Garth.
Come along on the journey
as we explore
Garthology.
Think of it more as a conversation. I like that. So if this is truly a conversation, then I say let the conversation begin. Showtime!
Hey everyone, it's Deb.
And I'm Pete.
And I'm Jess.
Welcome back to part 2 of our Garth Brooks birthday celebration. Here is where we continue listing the 63 reasons why we love and admire Garth Brooks. So let's get right to it, because a life this legendary deserves a party. Okay, number 11, Garth's relationship with Trisha Yearwood. We have talked about this before, and we all love their love story and how supportive that they are of each other. And so that is one of the things I admire about him, because he puts himself out there and shows how much that relationship means to him.
Yeah, it is something special, and I kind of touched on it a little bit later on. But this one's pretty simple. How about being the best-selling solo artist of all time?
Yes.
We are huge fans of Garth. I think, and for me, speaking for myself, I put him above anybody else out there when it comes to genres of music and who I listen to, or entertainers, or whatever the case may be. And to be able to sit there and say that my favorite is the best-selling solo of all time, it just shows you how good he is at his craft and the work that he's put in to get there.
Yeah. Well, and as it happens, my next one goes right in with that and you touched on it in your very first choice, and it was his songwriting talent. The ability to pick good songwriters and pick good fits for him, but also just, he's a brilliant lyricist. If you look on the ones that he writes on or co-writes on, just brilliant word choice. Just, there's so many songs that we've talked about on the albums before of just like, this is insanely beautiful and brilliant at the same time. And it's very, I would say it's hard to follow whenever he's the number one solo artist of all time and say that it's understated or that people don't recognize it, because I guess they do. But, even when we go and look at those songs, sometimes we're like, man,
amazing.
This is one of those ones on the album that gets overlooked, but it's so good. Yeah. So just his songwriting talent, it blows me away.
For sure. And we always find those, especially when we're reviewing the songs now, really digging into them, we find those tie-ins that, even though I knew every word of every song, I didn't think about the tie-ins within the lyrics themselves.
All right.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's genius.
Or how different, like me listening to it is different than how you listen to it, and the meaning I'm taking from it compared to you guys. Yeah, it's crazy. It is. It's genius. The story goes two different ways or whatever.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. On to number 12. Mine is being a trailblazer in country music. Garth pushed the boundaries in the country music genre. He brought in rock-inspired style, to his performances. Like we've already talked about his stage presence, but just the fact that he didn't have a problem covering Hard Luck Woman by Kiss.
Yeah.
That is probably my favorite cover, or one of them. It's so up there. I love that cover.
And that's not something that people in country music did in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. They just didn't do it. And so to me, being a trailblazer is really admirable and impressive. He has laid the groundwork for so many other people.
Yeah.
Agreed.
He's funny. Like he tells the best stories. He'll just drop some of the funniest one-liners. Like he'll just bam. And you're like, damn, he just said that. And it's great. Like you see it in interviews and stuff on live TV, and you're like, man, that's pretty funny or whatever. But then like when you're like at the live show in like Vegas and he's telling these stories, and then he just drops it, and he drops in a cuss word, F word here, S word, whatever. It's just funny. Like he's a funny man. And I love that about him.
Yeah, he has great comedic timing. I agree. My number 12 was, I love how he loved his mom.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And how he encourages everybody else to love their mom the same way.
Yeah, it's true.
Oh, that's such a good one. Gosh darn it.
Simple.
I'm sad I didn't put
Simple
that one.
And good.
All right. My number 13, Garth's commitment to his roots, which ties into his mom, his commitment to his mom.
Yeah.
He stays true to his Oklahoma upbringing and his country values. And I'm certain he learned that from his mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's always so hands-on with anything that he gets involved with. One thing recently that really pointed that out was the Friends in Low Places bar in Nashville. They did the TV series, and he was involved in so many different things. He was involved in color schemes and what he liked and what he didn't like, the stage. And then they even had it seems like his own personal contractor. I mean, some of these people have chefs. Garth and Trisha have a contractor that was on the show, and he's done kitchens and things like that for him. But Garth is known to put the gloves on and swing a hammer and punch a nail. And I think that that's great. I love the fact that he gets so hands-on. He has a vision for what he wants and what he thinks us fans are going to like. And he makes sure that he brings that to us in anything that he does. I think that's great.
Yes. This one ties in kind of to the last one because I talked about I love Garth's love for his mom. And I've talked about how he loves his girls. And obviously I love how he loves Trisha.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's just not a lot to say about that. It's just beautiful and unique. And I love his love for her.
Yes. All right. Number 14 for me is his down-to-earth personality. And we've kind of touched on this a little, so I'll make it brief. But despite being this mega star, he just remains humble and approachable. And you just don't get that from people of his elevated stature, I guess.
Right. So my next one kind of ties into what the last one I had mentioned about him being involved, but being the fact that he's the handyman, right? Like he gets involved, like you guys touched on earlier about getting the girls to build the bridge. I know that there's a lot of things, Ali Colleen, if you follow her like on Instagram and stuff like that, they have, the ranch and the farm and all that stuff, but he's done a lot of barn work around it. And I just like that he's just a man's man. Like, yes, he's Garth Brooks and he's a celebrity and he has all this stuff going for him. But at the same time, you could just see with the stuff that's going on in his life or around him. Like when he's at home, he's just a man, right? He just works around. He loves his wife, raises his babies, and just works around his house. And I think that that's great. I love that. It's awesome.
Yes, that's a good one. This one's kind of silly, but I love that he sort of played the saxophone. I love the saxophone, and I was so happy about that. And when he was like, well, I'm gonna kind of, I was like, no, you play the saxophone. You do. It's there in my head. You did it.
Oh my. Yes. That one's going to stick with me.
That's
good. No.
That's good.
Okay. My number 15 is Garth's diverse music style because, and again, we've kind of touched on this, but he blends that country and the rock and the pop, and he just appeals to this wide range of music lovers. And granted, he's taken some slack for that in the past, but I think I admire him even more because he did what he wanted to do as an artist, as far as, all of those different styles. He wasn't holding himself into a box. He stepped outside of that box and did what he wanted to do musically. And so, I really admire that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love the fact that he shows us that he is like a real human at home, I guess I don't know, maybe that's not the right way to put it, but like he talks about how him and his girls have like eat like a dog night, right? Like, I mean, what other celebrity is going to come out and tell you that they just throw the silverware away and they eat like dogs out of their dishes? Nobody's going to admit that. Like,
or that he has 70 toothbrushes. Or...
Yeah, that's funny.
That was what I thought when he was like, he's a real human at home. I was like, yeah, that he brushes his teeth.
And that's so funny because here in a couple of minutes, I might mention that. We're not sure. But yeah, it's just awesome. Like he's just a dude, like just a dad. He likes to have fun. And I think it's great.
Yes. I love that Garth wears his heart on his sleeve. I love how, when he tells a funny story, he tears up. And when he tells a sad story, he tears up. And when he loves somebody and he talks about him, he tears up. My mom's dad, my grandpa, was that way. The whole time that I remember, from the time I was a baby until he was very old and passed away, he could not tell a story that was funny or sad or any way without being tearful. And I love that about Garth. It feels real to me and genuine, and I just absolutely adore that about him.
Yes, I have one coming up that's similar. I love that about him.
Just means it's definitely true when we all hit on the same thing.
And this one is kind of along those lines too. My number 16 is the emotional lyrics that he records.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, because his lyrics are deep and relatable, and they bring listeners to tears and Garth himself to tears.
Yeah.
Yep.
I like that he stays true to where he started. He talks about the honky tonks, the Bluebird, Willie's, all of those places that taught him how to be rugged and tough and put the work in and night out. You know, play the music, give them something that they can dance to, and they're going to come back and see you. And I love that he always stays true to that. The story doesn't change. He put the work in when he was younger, and it's paid off now that he's older. And I think that's great. He deserves it.
Yes, he does. Absolutely. I love Garth's excitement on stage. Not to be confused with physicality. This is a different aspect of that I'm looking at. Specifically, I love how when he first comes on stage, you can tell no matter, God, how many times do you think he's come on stage in his life?
Yeah.
I mean, if you counted
so
it would
many.
be a ridiculous number. But every time he does it, he seems so genuinely happy, like a kid at Christmas to be there. And every time it's over, when it was one of those amazing shows, if you've been lucky enough to be at one, when he's crying and he's on his knees and he's just like yelling at the crowd, he's so happy and excited to be there. And you can't help but feel that and be a part of it. And I've never seen anybody else perform live and be that happy to be there. In fact, Deb and I have gone to a show, and I'm not going to say who it was publicly, but where we were like, man, it almost felt like they didn't want to be here at all. Like, super glad we paid to come and see that. And it was the end of a tour, and they were probably tired, and whatever it is, what it is. I've never seen Garth do that, and I've never seen another artist be as happy to be on stage as I feel like he is every single time.
I agree. I've never seen another artist do it like he does.
Mm-mm.
All right, on to number 17. So my number 17 ties into my number 16. In 16, I talked about the emotional lyrics, which Jess had talked about his emotions also. And that's where this comes in for me, because he isn't afraid to not only record emotional lyrics, but be affected by them personally. And he isn't afraid to let his emotions show. I love that about him.
Yeah.
I just love that.
Not a lot of people do that. People, shy away from stuff that is going to make them emotional. They won't talk about it.
Especially men.
Yeah, for sure. He always, this will go back to Aunt Deb talking about him being a pioneer in the business. He always makes sure that he pays respects to the ones that were there before him. And he pays respects to the ones that have been there along the way. He talks about people kicking down doors like Randy Travis and, how Reba McEntire and her voice and what she's done for female country musicians and, those Chris Ledoux and those things. I mean, it goes back to what I was saying earlier. If you are there to support him and you have the same beliefs in what is right, you're willing to put the work in and you're surrounding yourself with Garth Brooks is going to pick you up and bring you along the right. But he never, ever, ever shies away that if it wasn't for the ones before him kicking down those doors of country music, he wouldn't be where he is today. And it wouldn't have allowed him to do the things that he did where you said he was edgy and, kind of pushed the envelope. He saw that they did it and he pushed it a little bit longer and it's paid off for a lot of people.
Agreed. And I touch on that a little bit in a different way in a few minutes. But right now, I said, and Deb, you'll appreciate this one, I love that he loves hockey.
I didn't even think of that one. That's another good one.
They used to follow the Tennessee team, the Preds. I don't know if they still do or not, probably since they're there in Nashville, but I know that they used to talk about like playing on the road, going and playing hockey and stuff. So I love that about them. We're all hockey fans, actually. And so, yeah, I love that we share that.
Yeah, that's a good one. Oh, that's another one I missed. All right, so now on to 18, which almost word for word was Pete's number 17, because my number 18 is how he respects country music history.
Yeah.
He often pays tribute to legends like George Strait, George Jones, and Chris Ledoux. Exactly what I wrote is almost exactly what Pete said. So I agree.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. And it's funny because my next one goes back to how genuinely happy he is when he is in front of his fans. He is so happy to be in front of us, giving us, what we are screaming for to hear and so on and so forth. It's to the point where every time that he finishes, a show or an interview or something like that, he knows that he's where he's at because of us, and he thanks us for his life. And I think that that's great. He genuinely doesn't want it. We don't know what's going to come after the residency and all of that stuff, but it's hard for me to believe, seeing everything that we've seen from him, that he truly wants this to be over. I think that if he could and it was feasible, he would want to be on stage in front of us every night of every week of every month of every year. And he just seems to have a lot of fun out there. And the more fun he has, the more fun we have, the more fun we have, the more fun he throws back at us. And I think that's great.
It is. Yeah, it's so reciprocal, and it's so fun to be there. I think every Garth fan everywhere should get to see a live show at some point, because there's just nothing compares
like
to that.
It's true.
Next on my list, we've touched on this already, and Deb, you even specifically gave the example that I did, but his willingness to push the envelope, and you've both talked about that, and you've just talked about that. But I specifically said, like with Chris Gaines, just stepping outside of what you would expect of him and what maybe even his peers or the people, in his life as far as management and stuff would feel like was a good, safe choice. He just does what is creatively interesting to him and what he feels like he wants to do and what his fans might like, and doesn't really care so much about what is going to make money necessarily or what his, business people are like. This is the absolute way that's going to be the blockbuster versus the indie film, I guess. Like, he's not afraid to just go the indie route and do what he wants. And I love that about him.
Me too.
Yeah.
Well, and it's funny. So now we come to number 19, which Pete has actually touched on. So we're definitely seeing that overlap. So my number 19 is his record-breaking sales. He is one of the best-selling solo artists of all time, rivaling the Beatles and Elvis. Like,
crazy.
That is an accomplishment to be admired. I so admire him because, and Pete's touched on this too, you have to put in the work to be that person.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so, I admire him being at the top.
Yep. I love the fact that this man has 20 plus toothbrushes laying around at any given time. It was wild because we had done some research, and then we had actually asked on an Ask Garth one time, and he answered it, that in fact it is true. He does have 20 toothbrushes around at any given time, and he goes back to people, they'll do certain things before shows or when they get nervous or to warm up, and that's his thing. He just brushes his teeth. And so he always has 20 plus toothbrushes laying around at any given time. I think that's phenomenal. That's great. So good.
I knew that was going to pop up somewhere. I love that story, though. I love that he tries to keep prices down for fans because, again, he says he's got all the money he needs. He's not out there necessarily just trying to make money, but he could be. He could still be, bringing in 3 and 4 times what he does at a concert because people would pay it. But he doesn't try to gouge it to the point that, the little man can't go. He knows he has fans that don't make $1 million a year. And, some of those concerts, especially if people are having to go to Vegas or go to wherever to see him, that's a lot of expense. And he tries to get to town. He tries to get close to people so that they don't have to go somewhere. And then, he tries to keep those down way more reasonable than most people. If you compare to other concerts, his ticket sales are 99% of the time much lower.
Yes.
Love that about him.
I can't believe I didn't think of that one. That's such a good one. That's huge.
It's so true.
Yep. All right. Number 20. And we've kind of touched on this a little, but his personal storytelling in concerts. I mean, he tells stories. He's a good storyteller, but also he shares personal stories between songs, kind of making us all feel like we're on that journey with him. And I so appreciate that, getting that little piece of him. I think that's one of the reasons why I miss Inside Studio G so much, because we used to get so many personal stories then. So I really miss that. And because hearing about his life makes me feel like I'm a part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the fact that Garth has meant so much to the three of us, right? It's brought us so many cool shared memories.
Yeah.
This amazing podcast and some of the coolest things that we've ever got to do, like the last show in Vegas. It's brought us closer together, the three of us, but it's also brought us closer to the amount of fans that are out there that we've interacted with on the social medias and all of that stuff. People we've got to meet at these live shows since we've had the podcast. And it's just really cool to be able to share something or somebody like Garth Brooks and his music with so many other people that respect it and love it the same that we do. And it's come across, great stories and amazing memories. And all of that is possible because of Garth. So that's one of my favorite ones.
Oh, that's a really good one. I love that.
That is a really good one.
My number 20 is his accessibility. And that ties in a little bit with what Deb was saying as far as like inside Studio G, because I had specifically in here online. I mean, but he's always been like, years ago when he lived in Nashville, people would go to the gate. People would go to his house. When he lived in Oklahoma, people would go to the gate, go to the house. He would always stop and talk to people. I mean, hopefully nobody was ever crazy there. I never heard of anyone doing anything weird. And so as long as they weren't, like anytime he could, he always welcomed people, to talk to them and say hi outside of a show after if he could. And then with Inside Studio G online, like he tried to be so accessible to his fans and every week showed up to just talk to people and have little individual interactions with the messaging and things like that, the little video messages. And I love that he did that because I think probably a lot of artists do it at some point, but he very consistently has always made himself accessible to his fans. And I love that about him.
Yeah, me too.
If we could just get him to be accessible to the podcast one time, sit down with us, that'd be great. If you're listening, Garth, give us a chance, buddy.
All right, we have reached our final reason. So for me, my final reason of why I love and admire Garth Brooks is his legacy of positivity. His songs and attitude spread messages of love, friendship, and perseverance. And that will be one of the main reasons I will always admire him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good one. That was a good one for sure. I love and admire Garth Brooks.
Oh no.
It's okay. For what he's done for me, a big part of my...
You can do it.
Yeah, we're going to run out of time here in a minute. For what he's done for me, my sobriety, my favorite song in the dance, for me to look up to as a father and a husband and a person with a strong work ethic. We talked for 35, 40 minutes or whatever it's been about all the cool things and how he's hands-on. And it just shows you he's a genuine, real person. And I think that a lot of people are going to remember him for the good. And I think that's important. If people remember me for the good that I did, I think that's important. So that's what I have to say.
Whew. Yes, that's very true. And now I feel really bad because you guys had like very serious, good final ones. And mine is like kind of silly, but personal to me. I love Garth because he's an Okie.
Hey, that's a good one.
So I love having that connection. And while we're doing our birthday Garth episode, I'm drinking out of my very Oklahoma Eskimo Joe's cup.
Eskimo Joe's. I've even been there.
Not me.
Because when you have an Okie friend and you're coming from out of state, you are going to Eskimo Joe's and you're probably getting some Joe's clothes and probably a cup.
I need to go there.
I have a cup.
You do. Yeah, so I love Garth because he's an Okie. I'd love him if he was from somewhere else, but a little bit more because he's an Okie.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. That's it for today's episode. What a ride it's been celebrating the life, career, and legacy of Garth Brooks on his 63rd birthday, discussing our love and admiration. And from all of us here at Garthology and from fans around the world, thank you, Garth, for the inspiration, the stories, and the music that will live on forever. Have you checked out our website at garthology.com yet? If not, stop by today and check out all of our past episodes. And remember to subscribe to our podcast on your podcast platform of choice. If you listen on Apple Podcasts, be sure and hit that 5-star button if you like what you hear and write up a quick review to encourage others to listen. Then share us with everyone you know. That way you can help your friends in low places become Garthologists too.
And speaking of friends in low places, if you guys are on social media, so are we. We are on Facebook at www.facebook.com/GarthologyCast. We are on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Threads at GarthologyCast there. So if you can, or you have any questions for us or show ideas, please stop in, send us a direct message, and we will get back to you as soon as we can. And we appreciate the support.
New episodes of Garthology are available on the 7th, 17th, and 27th of each month. Please join us for our next episode. Until then,
thanks for joining us for another episode of Garthology. And I'm Deb.
I'm Pete.
And I'm Jess. And we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. And remember, love will always win.
Bloopers.
Hearing it's like a buzz or something. I think it's me. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I'm getting shocked and I just haven't felt it yet.
Jesus.
Hopefully not.
Holy moly.
Hopefully that's not happening. Now watch I touch something and get electrocuted.
Could you imagine that blooper?
No, this reminded me though, funny story, when my mom and stepdad were first dating, the first time they kissed, he was on stage and she had reached up to just give him a peck on stage and it was raining and they shocked because it was electrified and everything was wet because of the rain and I was like, they literally had sparks because they shocked with their lips.
That's fucking awesome.
That was just a funny story.
Awesome.
It reminded me of that.
And showed us that.
Oh, there it goes. She's getting shocked.
What are you laughing?
Because I said elevated stature.